Hello there, this is Three of Spades. Today I'm going to play some Force Unleashed 2 and go over some thoughts about how this game inspired me and other little tidbits. I've already recorded a few tries of this, and that's simply because this game is a really broken mess on the computer. But if it doesn't crash again, and I imagine it probably will, I'm going to see if I can survive a long time deflecting rockets. So here we go. This is in the middle of the match, by the way, so, and yes, I've turned the audio off, so don't think that you're missing out on anything other than the sounds of death and destruction. I mean, it's so loud to the point where it would quite literally overpower my voice, and you wouldn't be able to hear my quite lovely vocal cords. So, how is it that I get from thinking about this game to Rogue Planet? How did that happen? Why are we here, in other words? Well, it all started with this. In fact, this exact level, as a matter of fact. In the campaign of this game, you go to Dagobah for all of 20 seconds, go down a path, and a cutscene plays. It's incredibly unremarkable. Nobody ever thinks about it. Except for me. I thought about it, and I still do. I've thought about it for the past 15 years. It is probably, simply put, one of the most lazy levels in a video game ever. It's probably one of the shortest video game levels ever created. You walk down a path for 20 seconds, and the 10-minute cutscene plays. And meanwhile, in the Wii version of the game, there's an entire level with platforming, and even fun mirrors and puzzles and stuff. And it's strange. They even have like 2 more costumes than this game. Well, how can that be? What the hell happened? And I look into it, and it turns out, well, the HD version and development on all versions of the game were hugely rushed, and they had some concept art for this game where, I'll see if I can put it on the screen now, but they had some concept art for this game where you can see that they clearly had intended to make an inside of the cave, but simply just didn't. There's also, through these challenges, you unlock a story where the Dark Apprentice is developed as a character, but unfortunately, nobody is gonna tell you how to get to this shit unless you find a walkthrough on YouTube or something, so you're going to completely miss out on what the hell this story even was halfway through, why there's even a bad ending, and how any of this even happened. Like, there's also data banks, and they do help fill in the gaps, but, I mean, it's not complete. And it's very apparent that they didn't have very much time to make this game due to elements of it, like the inside of the cave here being nothing more than a few platforms like it was in the Wii, but not connected through any proper story missions nor any campaign of any kind. I believe this is the moment where, after you get the platinum here at the 6-minute mark, and I've put this on easy, by the way, so I don't instantaneously die, just to see what the hell happened, right? What happens in this is strange, because in the Wii version there's a level, but in this there isn't. Learning that the development's hugely rushed, and, you know, going on with my life thinking, oh, that's a shame, and it isn't really until I think about 2015 when I start seeing canceled LucasArts games popping up more and more. Battlefront 3, 2017, I see another game that's like Call of Duty, but Star Wars, called Star Wars First Assault, and it was canceled around the same time as Star Wars 1313, and yes, they are going to be spawning so many of them that they literally will fall off. I'm not kidding. I say literally like it's Leafy. Hey guys, welcome to another surf commentary by Three of Spades. We are literally gonna fucking die. Anyway, with Star Wars there, it's like, oh, well, I haven't thought about this in a few years. I thought the Star Wars Battlefront in 2015 was a rather mediocre, if not outright bad game with decent, ideas for weapons, but absolutely terrible mechanics, gameplay that lacked in every single department, sound quality that was outdone by its contemporaries like a decade prior, and hell was even, pretty good, all things considered, but like, the way I saw it, Battlefield 1 had come out and was, simply put, a much better game. Not that I'd known it at the time, because, hey, hindsight is a bit of a bitch, but the game didn't impress me. I felt like it was visually and, maybe audibly okay, but otherwise, I just didn't care. And make sure that's on easy. And the achievements are broken for this, so yeah, clearly no shit. But the difficulty is as well, because it keeps resetting the map back to hard mode, but I was able to get about 25 minutes survived on here. Anyway, though, disappointing Disney games. The second Star Wars Battlefront 2017 comes along. I see First Assault, and I learned that they had intended at one point to completely revive the Battlefront franchise before Disney had taken over, and it starts to make sense why Disney had even greenlit a Battlefront remake at all, because, well, obviously not just money, but because Disney is a bunch of lazy hacks who, as soon as they get one bit of a bump in development with games, they cancel the whole damn thing. It's either going to go perfectly or it's not. It's just going to die. And they decided that LucasArts, I guess, was, too much of a hit or whatever, even though they're fucking Disney, so it's not like they couldn't have actually just kept the thing afloat, even though it was 2013 and whatever, even though the economy sucked. Probably would have done them some good to have a decent Wreck-It Ralph game or something too, but I digress. I did really like those Disney games. It's a shame they stopped making them, just switched over to mobile crap. Star Wars First Assault was apparently the first of about 3 games. It was like Call of Duty Star Wars, and they had planned a sequel that was called Wingman, I guess. And Wingman was basically Battlefield 4 or Battlefront 2, but Star Wars, Battlefront 2 is Star Wars, of course, but Battlefield 4 Star Wars, quite literally. So I can see how they got from point A to point B, but what bugged me was that version of the game that LucasArts was screwing around with was just better. So I'm thinking to myself, well, why are they not just, if they're going to rip mechanics off from other games, why are they going to make them worse, Admittedly, I think the only thing that those old Star Wars games had done worse, like, say, this is just God of War, but Star Wars. In truth, really, I think the only thing they had done worse was, I don't know, maybe some of the weird, buggy, at times janky platforming. But otherwise, they were solid games. I really don't like the input delay and other non-responsive controls at times, but that's just kind of how all these games were, so I can't say it's just solely, a Force Unleashed thing. There are a few things that definitely are. But 720p, 30 frames a second, terrible VSync issues, horrible lag and input delay, if not just straight up outright kind of dropped inputs entirely, is not an exclusive thing to Force Unleashed. So there are issues with the technical sides of the game for sure, and in Force Unleashed 2 especially more apparent, where entire character models during a dramatic cutscene or whatever will deload. So if you get frame by frame analysis, you can see that they're literally just a pair of floating eyeballs, like they're Assassin's Creed Unity or something with the floating eyes and teeth. And these games had technical shortcomings, sure, but I could tell they were made with care and love. You know, it wasn't that. It was kind of that Bethesda way, I guess. It wasn't like out of malice. It was they clearly tried, and in this case, I think there's like interplanetary Las Vegas and other fun environments. But the Dagobah level always stuck out to me, and I was thinking, well, I see this concept art, I see this world, you know, this crazy idea of a guy fighting against demons and stuff. Why don't I make that, you know, kind of a mix between that and First Assault? I mean, I didn't really care much or know much about Doom at the time, so hey, first-person shooter game where you fight demons, what an original concept. But, it was the elements from the end of Star Wars that were of interest to me, because demons and monsters and shadows and bionicles are a lot of what was in my childhood, weirdly enough. I used to dream about shadow people when I was little. And the shadow people being in this game with the shadow troopers in the first game and the terror troopers in the second here. Oh, damn, that's a lot of rockets. The shadow troopers in the first game and the terror troopers in this one, I figured, well, you know, those are neat concepts, but they wouldn't be terrible in an original IP. But just Star Wars, it feels like it's a bit avant-garde, you know, that's a bit crazy. Feels like these people were just wanting so badly to do something of their own. So what if I make this idea of a fake game that, you know, is just like, well, what if LucasArts didn't dissolve and instead they were just allowed to be their own company still, but Disney kept them, if you will? Well, what would they do? If they couldn't fuck with Star Wars, they didn't get the IP, but LucasArts was sold off. I figured, okay, well, maybe not Star Wars, so how about something still sci-fi-ish, but, you know, maybe not exactly sci-fi-ish is what happened in the final game, but that was the idea at first. Maybe make some music, a fake soundtrack, if you will, like this for this fake game, Rogue Planet. Not exactly the most original of concepts. I mean, fake-out games were starting to pop up, like Doki Doki Literature Club, which is really why I was interested in that one, not because, you know, anime or whatever. I had my anime phase when I was 12, and honestly, yeah, anime is pretty bad. Good thing that only lasted a month. The thing with my game here, though, is the music, and earlier builds and music videos and stuff will show a group of people, and it was a cut concept from Rogue Planet that you would be working together and kind of like a co-op, maybe you fighting against monsters in the world. Think like Battlefront 2, but you're fighting against Force Unleashed monsters and stuff like this. Quite literally just taking what they had made and mixing it into a best of, if you will. And good idea, although trying to get scope and other features and ideas in check was the bigger problem, because I had all of these big ideas, I just didn't know how to formulate them or put them together coherently. And after about 6 or 7 years of iteration, I finally got there and released the final game on itch.io after Steam release, 3 early beta demo builds, and then like 5 more demos straight up for the final game as they kind of evolved. And I didn't want to do the live service approach, but basically I did, where I made 5 demos for the game. And in truth, the one thing I knew people would like, but I didn't want to do, was make the graphics good, because I figured it'd be a lot of work. But in truth, it actually was a lot less work than I thought. because I'm pretty good at making environments, but audio and syncing up music and other stuff has just been a huge crutch of having to rely upon tools that are not great then, and having to spend more time doing the audio for the level as opposed to just making the level. It was like I'd have to rely upon the same 5 stock music bits or sound effects over and over with the case of Game Guru, because it simply did not do audio well at all. If you wanted to think vertically whatsoever, you're basically screwed. It's not happening. And that's a real shame, because I had some crazy jump scare ideas, some fun little audio, dynamic music, maybe kind of Halo types of beats, but I couldn't use them. And there's the Orchestra of Eternity soundtrack on YouTube, and you can see see the videos I made and hear the music I did over the years, but a majority of it simply just could not be used, or otherwise not be used in the intended form, which kind of defeats the entire purpose of making 50, 60 some odd songs over the course of 4 years. If I can't even use them the way I intended, what's the point? So this is the part where they just start having infinite again, so excellent. My plan's very simple. Spam the ever-living shit out of them and hope to God I don't get hit. Now then, how did I kind of get to, formulating the game and stuff? The music got cut, whatever. Mostly I started this channel with music and YouTube poops, so as for the profile picture, I know a lot of people were early on, and still sometimes to this day, because nobody's willing to look closer, so that's why I zoomed it out a bit to make it harder to see, but it's Illuminati Gabe Newell, and the reason why I kept it for so long was because of a former friend of mine by the name of Caden. Now clearly he doesn't have any problems with his name being out there, so I suppose I'll just call him who he was, and in my most desperate hour he was Clyde. And I hid his identity because then I was still unsure if he would be a friend or not. It turned out he wouldn't be for much longer. He had made it a bit more abundantly clear than I should have understood that he was done being a friend of mine, because he didn't want to be there for the bad stuff. And he didn't want me to be there in his life, so it is what it is, I guess. 10 minutes and 35 seconds. Yeah, inevitably they just become more like a barrage. But anyway. With my game and stuff, I had made a promise to him that I would finish it, and I did. And a lot of the older stuff on this channel, eventually the reason why it had such a dramatic turn near the end, before I've kind of transitioned to just what I'm doing now, which is more what I grew up with, as opposed to finishing a chapter of my life and getting over the fact that my first real ever friend was kind of an asshole, and trying to have more faith in people. Basically a minor existential nightmare. And eventually learning more proper social development and communication and skills like that. It was a lot of self-doubts, It was a lot of things that led up to me eventually kind of saying, fuck it, if no one's going to care for the story and the gameplay, how would I do something else, like atmosphere? And clearly, making a world is what I was very good at. The graphics especially. When the game released on Steam, it was a bit of a nightmare. I had originally intended to do a proper re-release, but that just went out the window when the engine couldn't handle it, so it had to get scrapped, and I'm sure you'd probably prefer I just move to something better than waste my time trying to fulfill a promise I made to no one. Or at least, no one who cares. It's a waste of time and money, naturally, so you don't care. You'd rather just do something new, and I would too. So I did, and I've moved on to Unreal Engine 4, but looking back at the game and all of that stuff, it's a huge chunk of my life that is now successfully done. The ending, Remember Me. When I said Remember Me, I was not referring to myself. I was referring to Caden. It was putting to rest the friendship that we had. He was the Three of Spades. My dog's dying gave me a good excuse to use, that as a theme for singing a song as a funeral bit. I decided upon the name Three of Spades simply because of how they all tragically died at the same time. Like, I'm not kidding, I think one day after another, if not the same week. Terrible. Terrible time in my life, but instead of staying stuck there forever, I eventually learned to grieve and carry on. Instead of trying to hide it behind all of these video games, I decided to have a much better and healthier relationship with the entertainment that I was having, which is why I formed the Purgatory channel, but realized pretty quickly that it's not getting the views I want, so I'm just going to axe this other channel and go back to the main one where you actually seem to give kind of a shit. Not that anyone really cared to comment much. And I think the biggest issue with a stunt like that was commitment. Commitment I simply just didn't have to give in the first place. I was doing it more because I was pissed than doing it for good reasons, like getting over an issue or creating a constructive solution to a problem or something. Just seeing it as a conflict again, it's like, that's how I got to this in the first place, so nothing's changed there. I should stop before this gets unhealthy again. Because I realized everything's just better in moderation. Work life as a balance as opposed to just work or life. You gotta just find a way to relax eventually. So, I cut out a lot of the stuff with all these video essays and cut out all the rants and tirades and other things I was gonna do. I had so many cuts and takes of complaining about Game Guru over the course of 7 years, so many insults, swears, and other shit, but honestly, in hindsight, it's not even worth complaining about, because I don't care about the money. It's $5 I spent to make that game and that engine, plus, I don't know, like a gift of $100 just to be able to put it on Steam, so in truth, it's chump change in the real world. No one really gives a shit about the money. They gave a shit about the result, and the result was rather subpar. Getting to where I have been now has been a very, very, very long process, and it was something that had its ups and its downs, but now I'm thankfully ready to move on to greener pastures with Unreal Engine and put all of that behind me. While it's certainly not going to leave, it's at least a time of my life that I can say for certain is done with. It's a time of my life that I can put behind me and move towards better things. And I've grown a lot as a person. Took me a while to realize how to have fun again. And I have fun by building, I have fun by playing, I have fun by doing. Not by talking, not by analyzing all this shit, going over it like it's a crime scene or an investigation. No one cares. What you care about is just having fun. At the end of the day, it's why you're here. It's why I'm here. That's what YouTube's all about. If you're entertaining, entertainment isn't fun, why bother? I mean, hell, I can see why so many people like Nintendo, but honestly, Nintendo's terrible, so I'll at least admire their commitment to making fun stuff, but that's about all they got. Well, I don't think their stuff's particularly fun. but I can see why people do. And what I found fun is a lot of things that people find cringy or whatever. Random words on the internet don't much matter. These ones included. People who tend to aggressively question and, belittle you are usually too young to know much about the real world anyway. Same way I was. I didn't need an account to go and make all kinds of negative and crude remarks when I was a lot younger on this platform, for sure. Eventually I did make one and just said and did a bunch of terrible shit, but eventually that was a different story, so... Say around 2016, I think everybody was an asshole, so to be perfectly honest with you... people act like they've never done or said anything terrible in their lives on this platform now, and that's just stupid. People don't like to think they're stupid, but honestly, we're all a little stupid. Self-included. Better to just own who you are than to pretend you're someone you're not. A hero. It's really hard to throw these rockets. And I imagine that's because it's on hard. Yeah, the mass and the weight of the rockets is a little hard to kind of juggle. So here's my new plan. There we go. Excellent. Hopefully this works a little better. Blue and green. This isn't a terribly solid strategy, all things considered. I'm sure you could figure other methods as well. But frankly, I don't care how many takes I gotta do of this. I want to do slow motion Starkiller Neo in the Matrix shit. Anyway. Learning how to have more fun, not really care about what others think, is what made it so I enjoyed what I enjoyed more. And usually if people can see you enjoying what you enjoy, they're happier as well, because people are social creatures at the end of the day, and they just want to be happy. And if you do something I don't like, that's perfectly fine. Keep it to yourself, but honestly, as long as you're not being uncivil, I don't really care. We all got wild and stupid interests, so... Self-included here, I really like these dirty-looking, low-res, kind of lower-tech Xbox games. And, making one taught me a lot about what it is I liked, who I am, and, things I've done and things I intend to continue doing. I intend to make a game such as this kind of Xbox 360 action game. If I get to making a campaign, it's probably not going to be some dramatic multi-choice story thing. Again, that's just out of the question. I definitely want there to be replay value, but don't ever expect me to do another multiple choice story game again. I really was considering it for a while, but after the hellish development cycle that the first Rogue Planet went through, I think it's just better I make a good, solid game, and that's it. So, instead of the multi-choice 2010s thing that I did, but better in the first game, I think I'll just make a solid co-op game, because it's been fucking forever since I've played one of those. A game that solidly explains before and after of, Rogue Planet itself, and finishes up the story is really all I care to make, as well as a fun multiplayer and Call of Duty Zombies kind of game as well. Something I just want, because I've been really sick and tired of having like no Modern Warfare 4 kind of game. I don't mean as in the reboot from 2019 or the remaster from 2016. I mean as in a game that's like Modern Warfare 3, the old style Call of Duty. Metal music, funny lines and quotes, kill streaks that are loud as shit, wonderful voice chats and cursing and all kinds of that. A fun time, in other words, to some. Maybe not to everybody else, who tends to think more analytically instead of action-oriented, because, in truth, when you get into making entertainment, you realize there's a long way from the top. But I never went into this to rule the world or think of, information control like so many people now. It's like, ironically enough, a lot of people now want their opinion to be right, even though they're just so horribly, horribly bad at explaining such basic concepts. They act like common sense is such a wild and provocative concept. Then they'll just spam some ear rape meme to think that they're funny, even though I don't care. I just want to know what it is. Like, I'll see the cyberpunk meme where it's like, oh my god, he came, and have no reaction because it's not funny. Wow, guys, did you know sex exists? Other jokes exist too. That's strange for people who are trying to be entertaining. I don't know why they're not funny. Oh, that's pessimism, proxy. Surely you must be joking. I'm not. Don't call me Shirley. So, yeah, I want Call of Duty back, and Call of Duty wants to be taken out back and done things too with people who look like they came from DeviantArt. I mean, hey, if you like DeviantArt and Final Fantasy characters and people who look like that in real life, yeah, more to you, to each their own, but I really don't. It's just too silly. You're expecting me to take me like that even remotely seriously in a video game where you murder people. Like, the campaign takes itself remote. I want to say sort of seriously. The multiplayer until, like, I don't know, a week or 6 months takes itself seriously, I guess. But what the fuck? Okay, why the hell is that on?
Do not fail.
That should not be on for any reason. What the hell? Anyway. Lovely. Well, you speak of ear rape and ye shall get. Anyway. What I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted by Starfucker here was how that's just all silly as shit, and it just really makes me not care. It's like, you can't just have a fun thing. You've got to have, like, you can't just have a candy bar, because that'd just be too good. You have to have rat poison in it, too. And we can't have rat poison, we have to have mice traps. And we can't have mice traps, but we can have cream cheese. You might think, oh, chocolate and cream cheese go good, but you look at the expiration date, it expired 15 years ago. That's a lot of really bad looking cream cheese. I'm surprised it hasn't turned to dust by now, like, geez Louise. But, no, you just cover a candy bar in, like, sour cream or something, or cream cheese or something, and it's like, can you just give me the candy bar? Oh yeah, if you go back 20 years you can find a candy bar. So why would I ever bother with your new candy bars? You're selling perfectly good candy bars right next to, these new ones that are filthy or have poison and rat traps and mice traps and, you know, whatever the fuck else I said, sour cream and cream cheese. That's, you know, disgusting. Oh, games need to evolve. Games don't need to do shit that they don't want to do. Game doesn't need to do anything other than just be fun. I think that's what people mistake. In truth, trying to make an original game isn't gonna fucking happen. Because, have you, like, looked in the mirror and seen any of these games as of late? I think they're quite derivative of even themselves. Well then, there goes that candy bar. But, here we are, funnily enough, back to where I was trying to get to for the better part of about an hour. Finally found the slow-mo bit. So this is what happens around 13-ish minutes. Well, I say 13-ish, it's about 12 minutes and 30 seconds. So this took me a damn long time, an existential rant and a life story to get through. But, needless to say, we finally got it. Slow-mo Starkiller here in the Matrix, and I think equipping the green lightsaber was the best choice for this. Now, at this point, they're literally killing themselves quicker than I can kill them, so I'm still getting their life force with the life drain, so I guess that's a better strategy than what I had before, which only really accounted for force power, so, well, force energy anyway, but, yeah, here I am. Fucking, you know, pretending I'm the Superman, if you will. It's like I'm just walking into a hellfire of bullets and shit. It's awesome. So around this moment, yeah, 13 minutes or so. 13 minutes, 30 seconds. It starts to bug out because there's simply so much shit on screen that the HUD disappears. And now the frame rate's gone down to like 30. And the game speed has completely halved. Now, I can still get a decent frame rate, but you can tell I'm in slow motion, so clearly the game is just struggling. But it's worth it, because look at the amount of fucking shit that's been on screen while I've been telling you this wonderful story of mine. When I was a kid, I survived, I think, for about 40 minutes before the Xbox crashed. I never told my brothers about it, but it was a secret I kept. They'd be super jealous if they found out, so I wiped the save data and they got pretty pissed. I told no one. They couldn't know my secret. Unfortunately, though, I didn't know how the save data worked, so I figured, oh, that's fun, right? What's a delete? And I did. And, deleted this, literally. And, yeah, the way that I formed Rogue Planet, the way I did all of this, Pixel Gun 3D also had a fun campaign. I don't really know if I talked about it throughout this whole rant, but it had a creepy as shit story mode. It was probably the first real first-person shooter game I ever played, or was allowed to play, aside from Portal, because my parents really didn't like violence, yet they'd get me this game where I can blow up more fucking robots, you know, than Elon Musk can make shitty cars, apparently. So we can kind of see here. At this point, the game is screaming for mommy, and so is Yoda, because clearly I don't think his hallucinogenic marijuana cave was made for this. But Pixel Gun 3D had a creepy as shit story mode. It was a lot more violent and just spooky as hell. I think most people remember it for the Slender Man level, but I remember it mostly for the hospital and the prison. The hospital and the prison beforehand were probably the most impressive to me, simply because of the scale of the skyboxes and the claustrophobia of the environments. Like, I figured I was going to go in and play a story about some guy who does some happy stuff, but no, it was a dark story, straight up, about people dying during a zombie apocalypse, being too late to save the day, your cliche action movie stuff, but I, to this day, have still never really gone through a lot of that, and only now, after it's been 2 console generations, has it really gotten cheap enough for me to care about it and the Xbox One, where now I've, made a sizable enough collection, and I figure having proper offline backups of games and such, and discs and whatever it be, because it's not like you can trust Gabe Newell forever for him to be in charge of Valve and Steam forever, so I would not trust him with, something as simple as opening a door, much less running a damn company at this rate, seeing how he's kind of, put all of these hilarious pornography games that are just terrible onto his platform, this DeviantArt stuff. And that was another angry video I was going to make but decided against, simply because it got to be to the point of lacking some civility, needless to say, and decided for the better interest not to release that video. Even though the point kind of stands that, maybe it's just better to vary the amount of platforms you put your stuff on, so that way, instead of if Steam goes down, you do too, you actually have a backup, or 2, or 3, or 4. You have fail-safes. I don't recommend that you buy games on Steam. That's why I don't want to put Rogue Planet 2 on Steam. Especially after how it went the first time. I don't think anybody cared even when it was free. There was nothing with it, right? No catches. But people made up one. Oh, this dude is an asset flipper. He's a scammer. A scammer? I'm an asset flipper. As if buying things with my money is bad. Yet, you can buy all the skins you want. You can buy all the games you want. But a game developer can't buy any models he wants if he has a specific need for that. If he's a single person making this entire game all by himself, he can't do that. I thought you were about being, inclusive here, or being accessible. So you want to pick a fight with an autistic, disabled American who's learning how to make his first video game? Well, that's really cool of you, dude. I bet you hate people with disabilities. It turns out they did. What a lovely group of people on the Valve's platform, so I tend to avoid them. It was an incredibly unpleasant experience that I'd not like to do again. And people would say, oh, you should totally come back. No, I shouldn't. You didn't want me. Even now, this channel with 170 subscribers, I still wonder sometimes if people do really want me here on, YouTube, making videos and whatever, but I'm not doing it for the people. I'm doing it for me. And as mentioned earlier, that was the whole struggle of, getting from there to now. And, well, I'm here where I am now, and I'm pretty happy, and hoping to make more progress on the devlogs and the next game and such. Hopefully I'll have more to show later, but Pixel Gun had a wonderfully scary campaign that introduced me to the wonderful world of first-person shooting video games, and I unfortunately kind of joined when nobody else cared anymore, and even now I guess a lot of people just don't care because, oh, it's been 10 years. That's not as impressive as it was then. Hindsight can do that to people. I still think that this is probably really cool. This here. I mean, there weren't any microtransactions in this game. You didn't have stupid online restrictions unless you buy it on Steam, in which case that's just every game, unfortunately. Where you don't own the game, you don't own anything, because it's all make-believe. So, in truth, if Valve's going to violate their end of the deal, I guess they don't really have any qualms if anybody else does the same, and they clearly show that with their open contempt for their own games, with Left 4 Dead and Half-Life and Team Fortress and Counter-Strike and Portal and whatever else it be. And it's like, oh, well, they greenlit some fans to use their IP. Right, the same permission that they've allowed them to have for the past, 20, 30 years? Okay. Has anything actually changed as a result? Have the fans made any decent games? No. Oh, okay. Well, that shows everything you need to know right there, because people suck, as we've discussed for like 40 minutes now. Um, Anything of actual insight here, or is it just a useless, word salad bit? No. So basically, if it's of no practical use, it goes offline when they say it does, even though that's not the way that any other product I own works. I don't really care. Turns out that Valve with Steam was, a convenience, I guess, alongside discs in the early 2010s and early 2000s. But now a lot of their systems have become really contrived and slow and outdated, and, they thought that they could just straight up make the start screen from Windows 8 and I wouldn't notice. Even though the whole reason why they, funnily enough, made SteamOS was to avoid Microsoft's issues, they straight up copied every single one of their UI mistakes. Terrible menus, hidden information constantly, bunch of crappy submenus, locking down the operating system, making it convoluted, unnecessarily complex to get to what you want to see. Oh yeah, more big fucking boxes. I hope you like big boxes, because this is going to be on your desktop sometime soon, and it's going to look awful. If you don't like big boxes, then you're going to be forced to like big boxes, because even though you could just easily do, I don't know, a list or allow people to customize Steam without having to use PowerShell commands or the terminal to inject some DLL hooker or JavaScript thing, that'd be too easy to just let you actually have a button to change your skins or to not use a web browser. We're Valve, we're cheap as shit. We're clearly, just some small company who's ran by a few Chinese slaves in a basement somewhere, so... you're telling me we can't afford this stuff? No. Come on now. That's naive. They're not doing it because they can't afford it. They're doing it to make you think that they can't, do these things that they've done for the past 20 years, and that they still have the tools for. They've just taken away from you. What, you act like they are bound to the same restrictions? No. End-user license agreements are straight-up rules for thee, but not for me. That's the way they work, in order to make it so you can't run off with someone's intellectual property and go sell that shit. Because copyright law in the United States of America is absolutely horrid. So, of course, Valve's going to be super draconian about it, but that's because they kind of have to be. But then they'll allow every mod from, Little Timmy 420 or whatever. So, it's only draconian when it's money, but if it's anything else, yeah, go make pornography of it. Because, hey, any publicity's good publicity. We're acting like we're, Twitter politicians. As if anybody cares about that. They just want to play a video game where there's 5 million rockets being shot at once. I sure do. And that's why I got a disc version of the game, because the Steam version of this game, I do not have any control over. They force me to use an updated version that I don't like. And this 1.0 version of Force Unleashed 2 is faster, runs better, is better for modifying the game, so I can unlock all of the costumes and skins that I can't even legally purchase, much less would I even want to waste my money on said skins, because, costumes and stuff, that's what they used to be called. Not cosmetics, not skins. Costumes. That is the correct word. What I am wearing in this video game is a costume. You know what they also used to have? Cheat codes. Oh yeah, those are awesome. More games should have them. Maybe I'll put them in. But, yeah, this is probably something I'm simply going to have to break up into like 7 parts because I've rambled on for so fucking long. I think the next video I will do is Let's Play of Pixel Gun. And then I'll get back to talking about the game and stuff and whatever else. It's just, if it's a hobby of mine, I've got to have a break every once in a while. I can't just work non-stop on a game anymore like I did with Rogue Planet, because I got a real life. Responsibilities that accompany that. Eventually I gotta kick loose and play something as opposed to make something. This is one of those days where I play something as opposed to make, and just say a bunch of random nonsense. So if you like gibberish and bullshit podcast stuff, I figure I might as well do some of that. If I've contradicted myself about 70 times in the process of making that, well, who gives a shit? YouTube is where the poop is. I make YouTube poops for 7 fucking years. I am one. And speaking of poop, I gotta take a shit, so later.